word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. For a long time, I suffered with depression and anxiety. I had tried therapy before, but struggled finding a therapist I connected with until I found BetterHelp. That's why I am so excited to share BetterHelp's mission to make therapy more affordable and more accessible, because finding a therapist can be hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online. Remote therapy sessions, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. Click the link in description and receive 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. And by clicking that link, you support this channel. Plus, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. I was struggling for a long time, and BetterHelp was where I found my therapist, Whitney, who I still see weekly for almost 2 years now. So, if you're struggling like I was, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in description or go to betterhelp.com/altereagle. That's betterhelp.com/altereagle. There's no better time than now to start your mental health journey. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for supporting this channel. This episode is brought to you by Butler County District Attorney Richard A. Goldinger, R.W. McDonald & Sons Incorporated, Robert Stevens Jewelers. Thank you to our sponsors for your support on our first season of the Alter Eagle podcast. Today, I am sitting down with Leslie Osche, Chairman of the Board of Commissioners for the County of Butler. In this role, she serves on the board of the Southwest PA Commission and on the boards of RIDC, Tri-County Workforce Investment, and Community Development Corporation, and represents the commissioners on the Children and Youth, Parks and Recreation, Aging Advisory Committee, and the 911 Communications Council. She also served as treasurer of the County Commissioners Association of PA. As commissioner, she and her fellow board members successfully secured 2 major federal transportation grants to advance the Gateway 228 corridor, developed a county infrastructure bank, and launched the Butler County Growth Collaborative for Economic Development. And you gotta say it.
I spent 20 years playing in a rock band.
I made her share that. That's really cool information, and we'll have to have you back on the podcast in the fall maybe to talk about that. But for now, today, welcome. Thank you so much for taking time to sit down with me. So tell me just a little bit more about you, how you came to be in your current role as the chairman of the Board of Commissioners of Butler County.
So, Laura, I grew up in Butler. I graduated from Butler High School and was always active in just about every club or every organization that I could get involved in, including student government. But my father was a World War II veteran, and he stayed in the Army Reserves for probably 40 years after that. So I was in college when he retired from the Army Reserves. So I really had an affinity, utmost respect for him, and my parents instilled in me sort of that idea that community service was important and working for our country was important. And so then I went to Duquesne University and went into communications and journalism and found a track in nonprofit management and started my career with the Three Rivers Arts Festival in Pittsburgh. And then after raising children, worked for the Butler County Chamber of Commerce and was also director of tourism at the time, and then went on to serve at St. Barnabas Health System and Life Steps here in Butler County, and finally at United Way for 14 years. And I think in every one of those positions, I had the opportunity not only to work for and with boards, but to work for just about every aspect of the community, whether it was a business community or government, the nonprofit sector. And so when this opportunity came up to run, it just seemed like the time was right to put all of those skills and everything I had gained and learned to use, and took that big leap and step and ran, and here we are.
Wow, very impressive. Thank you for sharing that. So today, we're going to dig into the impact of the Department of Energy's proposed energy conservation standards for distribution transformers, which, if passed, we're going to say if passed, could shut down Cleveland Cliffs, affecting approximately, so we're going to get into this number. Leslie is going to get into this number because we talked about this yesterday, anywhere between 1,300 to 4,500 jobs. And ultimately sending Butler County into a possible depression. These are my words when I say that, because that is the reality of the situation. So we're going to start with taxes. We're also getting into buying power of employees, the impact of the plant, and even healthcare. We're not leaving any stone unturned. So Leslie, let's start with the impact a shutdown of this magnitude would have on. Do you want to start with taxes?
Sure. And, let me qualify this first by saying that we are a Cliffs family. So my husband spent 33 years working in the mill, starting with Armco, became AK, and now Cleveland Cliffs, and retired just a few years ago. So, we raised 2 sons and were able to pay for their college education, and I was able to stay working in the nonprofit because he had, good health care, good benefits, and a family-sustaining wage. So I know what that means to all of the families in this community who grew around that. But let's just start by talking about the impact of the employment alone. So Cleveland Cliffs has the largest payroll in this county, over $100 million worth of payroll. There is no other business that comes close to that in Butler County, if you can believe it. But it is the case. So the impact of that, when you think about that, the first of all, the plant itself, along with its employees, generates about $2.5 million in local taxes, including property tax. So that's sustaining school districts, municipalities. So we're talking about roads, public safety, the schools, all of those things that are critically important. That doesn't include, probably the $3 million in state taxes that those employees generate, as well as probably $16 million in federal taxes. So when you think about the impact of all of that alone, and that's not even taking into consideration the company itself and the corporate taxes. So you can imagine what that might mean for this county and for the municipalities to lose that kind of money out of the infrastructure and the basic provisions and services that are provided to our citizens. The other side of that is when we talk about the number of jobs, it's pretty well known. I think that every manufacturing job creates another 2 jobs. So if there are 1,500 employees at Cleveland Cliffs, now you're talking about 2 more jobs that spin off as a result of that, because those folks have the buying power that is supporting any other many other businesses. So now we're talking about 4,500 jobs affected, and that's 5% of our total workforce in the county. So the impact of that plant, here is tremendous.
This came up for me 2 weeks ago when I started really digging into it, and a question that I had for you that just came up with Tammy was, is just the Butler plant grain oriented? Because I know that the Ohio plant, did they get a grant to go green? Did that change how this was something she literally asked me upstairs right before I came down here to meet with you. And I don't know if that even...
Yeah, I don't know all the intricate details of the Ohio plant, only to know that they did work on hydrogen. I mean, on the hydrogen-powered facility, and they were one of the first. And so when the discussion came up here in Southwest PA about trying to apply for the federal funding for Hydrogen Hub, certainly the ears perked up here in terms of whether, what that might mean for, our local plants here. But I think the fact that they even launched that in Ohio just means that the potential is here, to make that, the potential is to make that happen here as well. Because certainly we're sitting on, an abundance of natural gas that is needed, to transition to hydrogen. So that was a discussion that was had at that time. I think, but I do think that this plant is the primary producer of the grain-oriented electrical steel.
Yes, and when we talk about the energy efficiency of that, this came up as well. I have been told multiple times in everything that I've looked into, it's 97.7%. So let's say 98% energy efficient.
Right.
That's pretty close to perfect.
It's pretty close to perfect. And, it would take, when we're talking about amorphous metals, which is the proposal by the Department of Energy to transition the transformers to amorphous metals, there has not been enough time spent even studying that to determine whether that would even have any significant effect on its efficiency. And, as I understand it, it also, it's heavier. And so if you might well imagine, it's already challenging in weather conditions, with they're hanging on poles, right? Transformers are hanging on a pole.
Yes.
So any additional weight on that pole, you may find that you have to go out and replace poles, to even hold them. So I think it sounds like there's a lot of challenges and issues, and the lifespan of that metal is not the same. As I understand it, the lifespan is also not the same as the grain-oriented electrical steel. So it's going to wear out sooner. Is what I've come to learn. So I can't, the technical side of this is, I'd leave that up to the Jamie Sycheks and Aaron Steinheisers of the world.
Yes.
But they are educating us very well on what this means for us and what it means for our country and national security.
Yeah, so when we're getting into that, we can talk about that a little bit, but I do want to get into, when you talk about the buying power of employees.
So if you think about, $100 million worth of payroll, and if you take 30% off of that for taxes, now we have, $70 million, of buying power that is going into our car dealers and stores and homes and banks and, investments here in the local community. In addition, when I calculate out, contributions by individuals throughout the county, you're talking also about probably upwards of above $3 million annually in charitable contributions made by these employees, all over the community. Wow. Whether it's in, Little Leagues and Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts and, all of our nonprofit organizations and the food banks and the churches. The churches are very much sustained by, by those folks who are a part of our community. So when you think about the impact of it just goes so far beyond. And again, that's not even talking about the number of suppliers that the company uses. So the trucking companies, the steel or the alloys, and the scrap and alloys, the refractories, the airco that supplies the argon and the oxygen and the other gases needed, in their steel making process. So many other companies around here will be impacted. Should we not have this plant here?
The buying power of employees, like as I looked over this outline that you sent me, I don't think we talk about this enough because no one's thinking about that impact. All of these things that you're telling me it's kind of blowing my mind, to be perfectly honest. So when it comes to having this conversation, how involved is our community? And I do know that I am going to share the town hall that Mike Kelly will be having specifically around this topic, which April 1st, correct?
Right.
April 1st. It's in the evening from 6 to 7:30.
Butler County Community College, speaking of which. or is it?
Yes. It's Founders Hall at Butler County Community College,
Right.
6 to 7:30 p.m. We need to get people at this event. We need to pack that house. How well do those town halls do? Do people show up for those? And
Well, I'll tell you, I can't give enough credit to Jamie Sychak and the UAW for really getting out there and trying to spread this message. In addition to Aaron Steinheiser and the leadership at the plant, but these are the ladies and gentlemen that are out in the community, spreading the word and talking about this. I have never seen something get so much. Generate so much discussion, but we have to keep that going. And the community does have to turn out. And the community does have to say, we're committed to keeping this plant here. When Cleveland Cliffs first purchased the plant, the commissioners, the three commissioners, and our economic development team met with Lourenco Goncalves at the plant, and we talked to him about wanting to make sure that we could be a state-of-the-art plant for the future, and what was it going to take, and what investments was it going to take to make that happen. So we recognize that change is inevitable. So the going green part is important. We have supported them on their application to DOE for their new electric induction furnace, which if that was supported here would make them 75% more efficient or more clean. It would reduce their greenhouse gases by 75%. So it makes no sense to me that we would consider investing in that and then turn around and say, okay, now we're going to say to the rest of the industry, we're going to move to amorphous metals only and just put the plant out of business. It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. And especially with a recent article in the Butler Eagle, I'm going to put that in this episode in the comment section, is how the administration is saying that they refuse to import from China, and yet they want to import a resource from Korea that, to your point, we're not sure if it's even something that, how sustainable is this? We already know that what we're doing right now works. Why are we trying to fix something that's not broken? And we had that conversation too.
We did.
So
yeah.
We had that conversation.
We always say if it doesn't make sense, it has to be politics, right? So I don't know, but
it's interesting. I never would have thought that I would be in a position like this where I'm learning a lot, and feeling very humbled by the people in this community. I moved away from Butler in 2004 and was like, bye, like that was it, and I ended up back here.
And we're glad to have you back, by the way.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm really honored to work here and be in this position. But as I'm starting to have these conversations, I'm a person that's willing to sort of put myself out there and be like, okay, so let's be the squeaky wheel, that wants the grease,
right?
Because we are not going to back down when it comes to something like this, that is going to not just affect the people who work there, it's going to affect all of us.
Right. And Butler County has more manufacturers than any other county in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I full well believe, and I if someone can come up with a better argument, you better make it. But that is the reason that this county has grown. That is the reason that we can sustain ourselves. That is the reason that our taxes are low, because we make things here. We have that kind of family sustaining employment here, and we survived the downturns, like in 2008, and we went through that downturn and came out the other side without the damage that was done in so many other communities. And when you think about the history of steel, because this feels like a war on steel, but we haven't learned much, because if you look across the region, and in particular the Mon Valley, and what happened, when the steel plants shut down and went away, and yes, we understand it became we love technology and we love healthcare and all those things that have that have taken taken its place to some degree. But yet those communities have not made it back. The communities have not recovered. And how long has it been? Long time. Mm-hmm. So we don't learn. We have not learned from those mistakes where, there are a lot of things we can do to make upgrades as they're attempting to do, with this application for the new electric furnace, that will make them greener. And there are plenty of exciting things, I'm sure, on that path that we would love to see explore. But we here, have a clear opportunity right now for rebirth in that area of Lindora that has always been, sort of what we point to as with the Cleveland Cliffs, with the mill, everybody called the mill, with the mill being there, we are still working on the loss of Pullman, So I think with the new Plant 2, the old AK Plant 2 site, that brownfield site now being redeveloped, incredible opportunity right now for really a rebirth of an area that was built by immigrants, if you think about it, Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you talked about that. I mean, you talk in here, Lindora was the community rich with immigrants from Poland, the Ukraine, Italy, and was the heart of our Black community.
Right. So, so I just turned 60.
Happy belated birthday.
Yeah. So I go back, and think about, what that was like in those days. And when, granted, there's a lot of tough times and a lot of tough stuff that, that happened. But the reality is, we can be that again. I believe that full well. But if you take that away, if you take Cleveland Cliffs out of the picture, that will never happen. We are sitting on that verge of incredible opportunity right now.
And we did talk about the impact of the plant. You did touch on that. All of the other jobs, all of the other companies that would be affected should our plant be shut down. The addition to, one job in manufacturing creates 2 additional jobs, all of that. So I want to talk a little bit more about, you say in here the opportunity for rebirth with the AK Plant 2 site, where there are at least 4 manufacturers looking at the site for expansion.
So I can't talk too much about that because they're under non-disclosure agreements right now. But I can say that, the design for that area, was an award-winning design by Moss Architects to look at, what that does to create yet a new neighborhood and a connection back into the downtown area, right here, actually right where we're sitting, with a street that would then connect directly into the Pullman development site. Tomorrow we have the groundbreaking for the new intersection at the end of the Picklegate Bridge there, right at Whitestown Road. We have the groundbreaking for a whole new development there. You have Butler Township working on the fields and park at the end of that piece of property. So much can happen here. And we're also, talking with various developers about housing in that area and what that might look like, because the goal is always to keep and attract young people and young families and bring people like you back to Butler to sustain and help our manufacturers who are all of our businesses and healthcare. And we can talk about the impact on healthcare.
That was my next question. So, and healthcare is something to really be cherished. If you have, I think for me, one of the things when I moved back and was looking for a job, I needed a job that was good paying so I could keep a roof over my head, right. But also I was like, I need healthcare.
Right. So you have a company with, labor contracts negotiated that, have been very positive through the years. And again, I think the reason that our plant has been able to sustain is because we had a good labor management relationship through the years, and they've been able to make some concessions when they needed to keep it strong. But the healthcare, so I want the reason that we have been able to maintain a community hospital and a community-based health system here without being swallowed up by the big guys, if you will, was, I think, primarily because of the location of this plant here and the health care provided to those employees. So if you think about the fact that most of it was family, I mean, it covered, my entire family. So, there's 4 of us. So now you take the 1,500 employees and multiply that by 3 or 4, you have thousands of people covered by health care, through that facility, through Cleveland Cliffs. So they're able to get wellness checks and all of the things that need to happen. And that is sustaining our hospital and our doctor's offices and our dentists and our, the healthcare system here. And then you talk about long-term care. And what does that mean? And again, because of the retirement and the pension that these folks have, they're able to cover the costs of their long-term care, and able to handle that. But I can't even begin to imagine what we're going to be facing if that goes away, because you still have an aging population, a growing aging population, significant, and how you cover those costs without either significant pension funds that are, or the health care that has been offered to employees like this. I can't even imagine what that's going to look like, should that go away. So I think, I don't want to think, I think about this, I try to think about this as the positive contributions that this plant makes to make this community very strong and as strong as it is, and not think about it in its absence. But that's really the reality that we're facing is, if that goes away, what is this going to look like? Do we have enough can we possibly ever build up enough to replace that?
We do need to have these conversations. You're right. It's having a savings account, having money in the bank, because when it comes down to it, it's our community. These are our people.
Right.
And a lot of what I talk about is human connection. And regardless of what we're talking about, if we're talking about policy or politics or addiction,
right.
Human connection is a huge component of just what everyone needs in life. And I can't imagine what is going on in the minds of the people who not only run Cleveland Cliffs, but who are working there.
Well, and again, you hear the story of addiction, if you want to go down that avenue, and look how we got here. And again, when the coal mining business shut down in the Appalachian, if you read the stories, the pharmaceuticals took advantage of that opportunity and said, we can make you feel better, right? We can make you feel better.
We'll get you back to work.
So the scary part of that, again, those are the kinds of things that happen to communities when this falls apart. And certainly, that we can't point to that here right at the moment as the number one, problem, but we are definitely in that, we were certainly in that Appalachian region that has been hit by that especially hard.
It's funny how many people I bring that up to, and how it felt very targeted. The areas that were targeted when it came to this new pill that could
absolutely was
take your pain away and get you back to work, because we're talking about people who will work 7 days a week for who knows how many weeks, months, don't know what a family vacation is probably, are just grateful that they have money to keep a roof over their head, food in their bellies, and, take care of their family. Right. And we're now in a decade where it's all about showing what you have and proving that you're successful. And I don't know, I think for me, it's more about who you are as a person and helping other people.
Right.
And I've always been a helper. I've always been someone who, you have the conversation, if you won the lottery, what would you do with the money?
Right.
That's a very, I think it's a basic question. Let's just be honest. But it goes through everyone's mind at some point. Most people feel a sense of relief even just thinking it. But for me, I would have to somehow take that money and be like, how can I invest it into my community, into making a difference with a nonprofit or here, not just once, but ongoing.
Right.
Ongoing.
And I think that's the other piece of this conversation is, if you look at historically what that company has, the company itself, okay, has invested in the community college, once Armco Park, now taken over by the YMCA, that still provides, fabulous place for children to gather, and especially in the summer, and to go get to camp and to get out of the city. All in the scouting and the employees. I go back to my United Way days here, in our week of caring, in which always had an incredible team of employees from the plant who were, in many cases, we redid the swinging bridge down here at the end of the street, completely redid that, cleaned up the graffiti that was all over the place, and the stream banks, and in one project, another project, they built a brand new shelter for community care connections. They did toolbox kits for Boy Scouts. I mean, they've done an incredible amount of work in Preston Park in Butler Township, building the bridges across streams and in Preston Park, and fixing up the trails. I mean, they are little league coaches. They are involved everywhere. They sustain the spaghetti dinners at the church. The
spaghetti dinners.
Yeah,
that's the one thing I did when I moved back, and I was like, I'd see a sign. I'm like, right. There's a spaghetti dinner. You're back in Butler when
pierogies,
pancake breakfast.
But it when you think about community and look, we're going to take care of each other no matter what.
We are.
We're going to do that. But taking care of each other right now means we have to get out there and use our voices and our, whatever that may take to help convince this particular administration that this is not the way, we want to go. We are willing partners here to, be a part of whatever transitions need to occur in that industry to make it better. But shutting it down is not an option.
No, not an option.
And it's not an option for our country. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's another point that I want to discuss is if we learned a lot if we learned anything from 2020, from COVID, from the pandemic, which oftentimes I still hear, if you're still being affected by the pandemic, there are still people who are being affected by that.
Right.
They're still trying to get back on their feet. And the thought of all of the things that we weren't able to get because they were imported.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Whenever we had the baby formula shortage, why are we not paying attention to the fact that we're able to provide for ourselves here in this country what we need? Mm-hmm. And yes, then it's political, right? Obviously, but you're doing something to a community that has been producing steel for over 100 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're sitting in a building, and the Butler Eagle hasn't always been at this building. They moved here, I believe, right before COVID happened, 2019. Right. But that has been around for 153 years.
Right. So you think about the number of businesses. I can't tell you how many celebrations we've been to, the commissioners have been to. And again, I have to say Commissioner Geyer and Commissioner Boozle are 100%, in support of Cleveland Cliffs and this plant. And, and we have collectively written letters to the White House, even under the Trump administration, regarding the tariffs, because that was the first battle, was Section 232 of the steel tariff. So, when we attend all of these 100th anniversary events of these businesses, so many businesses celebrated milestones just in the last 8 years that we've been in office, and if you look at when the plant came into being at the basically turn of the century, that's all of these businesses, popped up right around the same time. So a lot of small business is supported and has been supported by that industry that's core. Mm-hmm. So again, you lose that. What do you lose?
We lose an entire town. I'm sorry to make that sound so final and dramatic, but in all honesty, I think that we need to make a little bit more of a fuss about this. I'm one of those people that's all for, okay. As you were talking about, writing to the current administration and the previous administration, mm-hmm. About the tariffs and all these things, it's almost you've been in this sector, you've been in this arena, so you can probably see what's on the horizon, right? And preparing yourself as much as you can be prepared. But what else can we do? What else do we need to do?
Well, I think, everybody always says reach out to your legislator, but you've got to tell your own personal story too. I mean, that becomes really important, because just signing on to a letter or signing on to a petition doesn't mean as much as when you can tell your story. And so, again, for me to say that we are a Steele family, I'll never forget the first opportunity that I had after, Jim working there for 30 some years to actually walk into the plant and see, what it was like in that melt shop. And it is awesome, but it's also like I said, it's like an attack on all your senses, because it's dark, it's loud, it's bright. It's either dark or bright, because mm-hmm. when they pour the steel, obviously it's, overwhelming. It's loud. It's sometimes dirty, sometimes not, depending. But it really is. It was so overwhelming that I was reduced to tears enough to look at him to say, thank you. Thank you for doing this for 33 years so that our family and my sons could go on and do the things that they do, that they were able to do. They were able to go to college because of that. We were able to put that investment back into community college. I was able to work and contribute back to the community. He was a fire chief, in a volunteer fire chief. So when I think about those personal stories that relate back to the plant and what that plant meant, and what the employees meant together, because every tragedy that we suffered, they were all there. They were all there to help, So I can't, I think people have to realize that they have a connect. If you sit there for a minute, you have some connection to this plant. And we have to tell those stories, and we have to understand that we need to learn from history. And again, not saying that we shouldn't also begin to look at developing our other sectors, in technology and healthcare. But if you're not building things, because even the robotics industry, where do you think that's being applied? It's being applied in our manufacturers. So we're building that sector, and we want to, even through the Build Back Better challenge that we won here in the region, the $67 million being invested in that, a lot of that robotics ecosystem goes back to our small manufacturers, small to mid-sized manufacturers who are adopting that robotics. So if you're not making things, who's paying for the services in healthcare if you don't have a strong manufacturing sector to provide the healthcare insurance for you to get the healthcare? You have to really think about all that.
Yeah. And these are things that I guarantee I wasn't thinking about that. Mm-hmm. I was thinking, if this closes down, this many people are going to lose their jobs, and that's going to significantly impact our economy. It's interesting because it's something that Mike Kelly pointed out to me when he is going to legislation and looking at a bill, right? And he votes a certain way on a bill. He's reading like a 17-page mm-hmm. bill, and people will be mad at him for this much of the bill.
It's probably more than 17 pages, like maybe 300.
Yeah, you're right. I think he mentioned one to me that mm-hmm. was, I think he might have even said like 1,700, something mm-hmm. insane, where I was like, I'm sorry, what? Right. And he said, I read the entire thing, and someone will come to me and they're not happy because I voted on this bill because this. And he has told people in the community before, it was like, talk to my assistant, give them your address. We are going to send you the full bill.
Right.
You read it.
Right.
get back to me in 72 hours, and then tell me if you still have the same. And a lot of times people don't take him seriously. They think, oh, you're just messing with me. He's like, I'm not, because I want you to see what I get. This is what I get. This is what I'm looking at. And when I'm looking at it, maybe I don't agree with 15% of it. 15% I'm like, oh, but the other remaining.
Right. And this is what happens, right? And people do get misled and confused because most bills don't have a single issue in them. It's not a single piece. And we went through this with the 911 legislation where, folks did not understand why legislators voted or didn't vote for that particular bill, but they don't understand that there's so much else packed into that has probably nothing to do with 911, that until you actually read it, you don't know what they were actually voting on. So, usually we are the ones that just, at the county level, we're delivering on whatever mandates are coming down or whatever legislation is developed. So we've begun to learn to pay very close attention to what that looks like, so that we can deliver on it.
And there's a lot of people involved whenever we're talking about legislation. And he said that too. It's very interesting to me. And it's something that I feel like I'm slowly starting to dig in a little bit more to understand and be bipartisan. I think in the position that I'm in, it's important for me to be that.
Right.
I want to hear both sides. I want to understand, how did we come to this conclusion? But I'll be honest with you, the conversations I'm having in these last few weeks, I've got a little fire in my belly. Where I'm ready to be like, we're going to DC with buses and
right. I think this is a bipartisan issue, though. I don't know how it's and it's becoming clearly that. I think people are recognizing that when you look at clearly the impact on the United States alone and our country alone, and then as it trickles down to our communities, this is we need to pay attention, and maybe we haven't paid enough attention as individuals over time. We go up, we are very fortunate, I think, in this county. We have a high level voter registration, high participation in that, but I don't know that everybody necessarily understands the complexities of every particular issue, but this is certainly one, where it's going to affect you. I don't, all across this county and beyond, because those employees don't just live in Butler County. They live in a lot in Armstrong County, Venango County, Allegheny County, all the counties surrounding us. It's going to affect everyone. Because again, the taxes they pay are going back to those individual communities and those municipalities, and it's public safety, it's roads, it's infrastructure, it's all those important things. Mm-hmm.
Someone in our community wants to get involved. Me, for instance, who do I write to? And do you suggest that people from our community do that? Is that something you're comfortable with?
I do. I think we need to, address that too, because we wrote to Department of Energy. I think we wrote to the Secretary, Department of Energy. You need to write the congressman. You need to write the senators. You need to write to the White House. You need all the above. And if you have a story, tell it. Take the time to write the story, to tell the story, to tell what it's going to mean for you and for your family, and how important the sustainability and how much you care about, not just the sustainability of the plant here in the community, but the security of our country, and that, understanding that we need a sustainable electrical grid that's strong. And if it works, why would we want to rely on China and Japan or other countries or Korea for the steel that goes, or for the metal, amorphous metal, let's just say that goes into these transformers. Again, we've seen the impact of the tariff issue, where they were avoiding the tariff by producing these laminations and cores that were then shipped to Mexico and Canada. And again, this became a complicated issue because we had just renegotiated NAFTA, but they were, shipping those things to Mexico and Canada, and then mills were popping up along along those borders to produce the transformers and then bringing them into the United States. So they were avoiding the tariff by doing so, but hurting our own plant. And, even this U.S. Steel situation, you look at what happened there. I can remember when the U.S. Steel said, well, we're trying to make a decision on whether or not we're going to make an investment here, but we can't seem to get the permits to do the investment that they wanted to make that probably would have made that mill greener. But not being able to get those permits from the county and Allegheny County, whatever was happening. And I wrote to the county back then, to my colleagues there and said, look, if you lose that investment here, they're going to take that to Arkansas, which is a direct competitor to our steel mill here. Mm-hmm. And it's a non-union plant. So we're going to lose not just U.S. Steel or that investment, but also we're going to hurt another local plant in the Southwest PA region. So unfortunately, didn't go the way we had hoped, but you have to think about, the local impact, the regional impact, and then it's like rings. You're just looking at the ripple effect of where this goes.
It's absolutely a ripple effect. Is there anything else that you want to say, or?
I think Butler County citizens should be proud of the leadership, not only at the plant and at the UAW, who are fighting fighting very hard, going to DC, doing what they need to do there, but also our Economic Development Corporation, our Chamber of Commerce, all of the entities that are now in this, and grateful to Congressman Kelly for taking that lead and for all of the bipartisan participation in what could be a bill that will protect us here and will protect the country. And you need to thank them. You need to thank them for doing that, but also use your voice, reach out, write the letter, make the phone call if it has to be a phone call. It matters. It matters a lot, and will make a difference if we stand up.
Absolutely. Thank
together.
You so much for that. Mm-hmm. And phone calls are very important because a lot of times, when they're sitting there taking those calls, I was in his office when they were getting calls. Mm-hmm. They're keeping track of how many calls they're getting and who's calling. Right. And that can make a huge difference when they're like, we're consistently getting calls about Cleveland Cliffs. Right. So very powerful stuff. And again, I'm assuming you're going to be at the town hall. Yes,
I will be at the town hall.
So yes, we have the public town hall to speak specifically about the U.S. Department of Energy's proposal to threaten. We're talking about a number of jobs, right? More than 1,300 at Cleveland Cliffs Butler Works. So please, if you have that evening free, Monday, April 1st, starts at 6 p.m. It's at Butler County Community College at Founders Hall. I know that it would really make a huge difference to see a big community outpouring at this event. So I will be there.
I will see you all there.
She will see you there.
I want to see it flowing out the back door of Founders Hall.
we need it to be one of those archive photos. I remember seeing an archive photo from the Eagle when they used to put election results on the outside of the building. And there were just people filling the streets. I want Founders Hall to be overflowing where people
We need to call in a Jumbotron.
We need a Jumbotron outside so everyone can be in tune with what's happening inside. Right. We're going to put that out. That's happening.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that's like,
let's do it.
We're going to manifest it.
Let's do it.
It's possible, right? You don't know until you try. So let's put that out there. So thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Well, thank you for having me here. On behalf of the commissioners, we're grateful.
Yes, well, thank you. It was a truly honor. I can't say words. This is why I need to have like a script in front of me. It was an honor to sit down with you today, Leslie. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to Alter Eagle. Join me every Monday for a new episode. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode, and follow us on Instagram at Alter Eagle Podcast. Until next time, stay safe, stay hopeful, stay kind.